Hi lovelies, you're welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be cutting this beautiful dress by Stitches from Stitches by Icy. So let's dive right into the tutorial. Now I've gone ahead to mark my body measurement, my shoulder line. I mark my shoulder line, then I came down to my bust line. Then from my shoulder line, I came down to my under bust line. Then from my shoulder line, came down to my waistline. From my waistline, I came down to my hip line. Now, how I got this hip line is from my waistline, I measured down to my hip line is 8 inches, and then I added 1 inch. Now, the reason for adding that 1 inch, I'm going to be explaining later on. Now, I'm going to divide my shoulder measurement by 2, which gives me 8 inches after dividing by 2. Now, I'll go ahead to take 3 inches for my neck wideness, and then from that 8 inches point I mark on my shoulder line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch to get my shoulder slope. Now after doing that, I'm going to divide my round arm hole measurement by 2, which gives me 8.5 inches after dividing 17 inches by 2. Now I mark the point there. I'm going to go ahead and connect with my ruler, and then I'll connect it this way also. So this will give me my chest line. This line here is now my chest line. Now I'm going to go ahead and connect the neck depth this way. You can actually connect this to your bust line if that is what you want. Now I'm going to go ahead and divide the measurement I have on my armhole area by 2. I'll get the midpoint. From that midpoint, I'll come in by half of an inch, and then I'll go ahead and measure my bust circumference divided by 4. I'm going to be placing one part of it there, which is 10 inches. Then I will go on my chest line. Then I'll go ahead to connect it this way. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to divide my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 8 inches divided by 2 will give me 4 inches. From my bust line here, I'm going to mark that 4 inches down to my hip line. Now after doing that, I'll go ahead to rule a straight line on that point that I have there. Now on my waistline on the dart leg, I'm going to be taking half inch on both sides. Then from my hip line, I'm going to come up on the dart leg by 2 inches. From my bust line, I'm going to come down on the dart leg by 1 inch. Then I will go ahead to connect it this way. Now after doing that, the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to go ahead and divide what I have on my shoulder by 2, which is 5 inches divided by 2 will give me 2.5 inches, and then I'll go ahead and connect it this way, meeting my dart leg. Now the next thing I'm going to do now is to take quarter of an inch on that dart on my shoulder line. Now after I took quarter of an inch on both sides of the dart on my shoulder line, I'm going to go ahead and connect it this way. So that middle line I'm going to be cutting out. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to replace that. I measure what I have there now, what I took on the dart on the shoulder line, and it was half inch. Now I'm going to replace it back on this my shoulder slope part here. Then I'll go ahead to connect it this way. Now the reason for doing this, I don't want when I'm joining it with the back part, the back is going to be longer than the front shoulder. Now this particular armhole line I'm no longer using, the old armhole line I'm no longer using, so I just went ahead to just indicate it. Now the next thing I'm going to be doing, I already took my bust measurement. Now I'm going to be taking my waist measurement of 8.5 inches after dividing by 4. I'm going to replace the dart intake of 1 inch, and then I will go to my hip line. I'm going to take my hip circumference after dividing it by 4. I have 10.5 inches. I'll go ahead and connect it this way with my pencil first. Now after I'm done connecting this is not the actual body measurement, because I'm still going to be connecting the body measurement again. Now from that my dart leg on my waistline, I'm going to come out by almost 1 inch at the center front. Then for the side front, I'm going to come out up on that dart leg at the waistline by 1 inch. Now I'll go ahead and connect this straight up to from my under bust line to my hip line. Now after doing that, I'll just go ahead and connect it this way. So just watch closely what I'm doing here. Now after connecting it this way, I'm on my bust line. So my shoulder to my waist measurement at the back is 17 inches, but at the front is 18 inches. So it's just 1 inch difference. Now that 1 inch difference is what I'm going to use as my side dart. So I'm going to go ahead and place it this way so you understand. So from the 17 to the 18 inches is 1 inch, right? So I'm going to place that 1 inch from my bust line. Then I will mark from that 17 inches to that 18 inches. So this is going to give me 1 inch now. I'll go ahead and connect with my straight ruler, meeting that my dart leg on my bust line this way. Now I'm going to be closing this part. I'm just going to indicate it. Now from my shoulder, I'm going to cut this my shoulder dart here this way, and then I'm going to be cutting from my bust line. I'm not going to cut it through that cut the paper finish. I'll just go ahead and just close it this way. Then I will use my tape to secure this down. So I've gone ahead to close the side that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just blend this my body measurement there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to replace this space that I have for my dart, that's my chest line. I'm going to replace the 1/2 inch there. Then on my waistline here, I'm going to take my measurement afresh, which is 8.5 inches. I'll replace the full dart I have there now, which is about 2 inches. Then I'm going to go ahead and mark that 2 inches on my waistline. Now on my hip line, I have a dart to replace. After taking my normal dart, my normal hip measurement, I'm going to replace the dart intake. Now I've gone ahead to mark the point there. I'll go ahead now and connect again with my pencil. So now after I've gone ahead to connect with my pencil, I'm not going to be needing this first line that I marked for my body measurement. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean that out. Now after cleaning it, I'm going to be adding my allowance of 1.5 inches, and then I'll go ahead to connect it with my marker. Now you can actually add your allowance on while cutting on your fabric, but I like adding my allowance while cutting on my paper. So I will know I'm just adding just 1/2 inch stitching allowance all around. So I've gone ahead to label this my allowance. The next thing I'm going to do is to kiss this green that line that I have, that's leg that I have here. I'm going to be kissing those two green that leg together this way. I'll make sure that the waistline is aligning properly, the hip line is aligning properly. Now to give it that curve at the front of this top, this dress, I'm going to come down by 4.5 inches from my waistline, and then I will go ahead to connect it this way with my French curve. Now after I've gone ahead to connect it this way, this is going to help me when I'm sewing on my skirt. When I'm joining with my skirt, it's going to, that shape is going to be exactly on my hip point. That is the reason why I added 1 inch to my waist to my hip point. That's the reason why I added 1 inch extra. So if my hip is my waist to my hip is 8 inches, I added 1 inch extra so that when I sew it on my skirt, when I attach it with my skirt, I'm going to be having that design is going to be stopping exactly on my hip point. Now I've gone ahead to cut out the part that I don't need. I'm just going to go ahead and cut out this. I'm going to go ahead and outline this way. I'll also be doing the center front this way also. So just go ahead and just connect this way to your bust line. Now after I'm done doing that, I'll just go ahead and cut out this part. I'm no longer going to need it. And then I'll go ahead to cut out this part here. And this is totally all for the front part. I'll go ahead to pin this down and then proceed to cut out the back part. So now I've gone ahead for the back part. I've gone ahead to mark my body measurement, both my zipper allowance. So for my zipper allowance, I made use of 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to label this, and then I'm going to be taking all my measurements from that zipper allowance line. So my zipper allowance is 1.5 inches, like I said. So I'm going to, I from my shoulder line, I mark down to my bust line, which is 11 inches. Then from my shoulder line, I mark down to my waistline. I don't need under bust measurement here because this is the back part. So from my shoulder to my waist the back is 17 inches, like I said while drafting the front pattern. Now I'm going to go ahead and measure from my waist to my hip. I told you is 8 inches, but I added extra 1 inches to make it 9 inches, and I already explained why while I was explaining the front pattern. Now after doing that, I just went ahead to mark the lines and label it. Now I'm going to be taking my shoulder measurement of 8 inches. After dividing 16 inches by 2, I came down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and then I connect it to my neck wideness. And then the next thing I did is to mark my shoulder armhole circumference divided by 2, and I just went ahead to just connect it to my body measurement on my chest line. Now the next thing I did is to um from the waistline, from the waistline on my zipper part, I came in by half inch, and then I went ahead to connect it this way. This is just to avoid any zipper bulginess. So I'll just go ahead and connect it this way. So I'm going to be cutting this side out. I'm just indicating it. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to take my nipple to nipple circumference, which is 8 inches divided by 2 give me 4. From my chest line, I took the measurement on the lines I have there to my hip line. Now I'll go ahead to connect that 4 inches that I took on every line I have there. Now after I'm done doing it, I'm going to, from my waistline on the dart leg, I'm going to be taking half inch on both sides of the dart leg. Now after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and connect this way. So after I'm done connecting it, the next thing I'm going to do now, I already took my bust measurement, which is 10 inches. My bust circumference divided by 4 will give me 10 inches. Then my waist circumference divided by 4 will give me 8.5 inches. I'm going to be replacing the dart intake of 1 inch. Then on my hip point, I'm going to take my hip circumference, or which after dividing by 4, I have 10.5 inches. Then I added half inch to it. The reason for adding that half inch to it, I'm sorry that that part didn't show, but the reason for adding half inch to my hip circumference that I divided by 4 to get 10.5 inches, I added half inch to it to get 11 inches. Now the reason for doing that is because I want the front shape, the side, and the back shape at the side to match together. So after doing that, I went ahead to mark where my back yoke is going to be starting from, which is from my bust line. Then I gave it a curvy shape meeting my chest line. Then on the dart leg on the bust line, I'm going to take 0.25 on both sides of the dart. And then on the hip line, the dart leg on the hip line, I'm going to take half inch on both sides of the dart. So after doing that, this is what I have. I'm so sorry that my camera was not on to capture all this part that I just explained now the next thing I'm going to do is to replace my dart intake on my hip line of 1 inch. The dart intake is 1 inch. I'm going to go ahead and replace that 1 inch on my hip line. So after replacing the dart intake of 1 inch, I'll go ahead to connect it to my body measurement on my waistline this way. And then I will go over to my bust line. I will measure the quarter inch will give me half inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark it there. Then I will go ahead to connect it this way to my body measurement on my waistline. Remember, we already took the that intake on the waistline. That's the reason why I did not take any that intake there anymore on the waistline. So I've gone ahead to measure, to mark out the to indicate that this is my back yoke. I'll go ahead now and cut this out. So I'm going to cut out this the zipper bulginess too, and then now I'm going to go ahead and kiss that two green line. That is the two green line that indicates my dart. I'm going to go ahead and kiss it this, like join it together this way. I'll make sure that the lines are matching each other properly. Then from my waistline, I'm going to come down by 4.5 inches. Remember, under my zipper line, and then I'll go ahead and add my allowance of 1.5 inches before I forget. Then after doing that, I'll just go ahead and connect it this way. So after connecting it this way, I'll just label it my allowance. The next thing I'm going to do now is to come back to this part where I'm going to give it that curve. So from that 1.5 inches I came down by from my waistline, I'll go ahead and connect it this way. Now after connecting this way, I'll just extend it in a straight with a straight line to my zipper allowance part, and then I'll go ahead to cut this out. So I'm going to cut out the side part also. Now after doing that, I'm going to be cutting out my back yoke. So just watch where I'm cutting out from. Now after cutting it, I'm going to be closing the back dart this way. I'm going to be using my tape to secure it down. So just make sure you're closing it the right way. So I'm just using my tape to secure this down now, and this is all for this back part. So I don't really know how the back of this dress is actually, so I'm just doing me here. I'm just using this particular back yoke here, as you can see. Now you can go ahead and just like give this another yoke, another pattern of yoke, or another type of yoke. Just go ahead and connect this way to your dart leg, and this is all for the back. So please do not forget to subscribe, comment, like, share. I will see you in my next video. Bye for now, and thanks for watching.